Hello and welcome to Economics. This is Mr. Johnson, first lecture of a billion of them. Hey, so the way this works is just like any other video you've used. You just hit play and you go through it. Cool part of this is that you can pause the video at any time, write down your notes, rewind, replay again. You can listen to it as many times as you want. You can fast forward, whatever. So that's kind of cool. Whatever questions you have from this video, hey, come see me, come talk to me at any time. What I want you to do is write down notes. Whatever notes you write down, you can use in the test. And a lot of the test questions are in this lecture. So please take notes for yourself. Also, I want you to read the book, chapter 1 also. Read the book and take notes. You may also use that on the test. All right? In class, we're going to do a lot of in-class assignments and projects, but it's not necessarily keyed to the test. So these lectures are very important in getting you ready for the test. All right, let's get going. So this is chapter 1, section 1, fundamental economic problem, and that problem is scarcity. The concept is that we have unlimited wants and needs, things that we want from society, things that we use in society, whether it be pizza delivery service, a pizza itself, the car tire that goes on the pizza delivery vehicle, on and on and on. All of those things, all these things that we use in society, they have to be produced. Well, the problem is that we don't have unlimited capacity to build as much as we want. We can't. There's a limit. That you've got to understand that there's a limit to those to the fact that we don't have everything. So each society deals with that problem in different ways, and the way in which they deal with that question of how do they cope with that scarcity or that limited amount of resources or stuff, that's the study of economics. How do they deal with it? Another side part of what we do in economics is it's a decision-making science, or or a study in the way people make decisions. So a lot of times what we'll do is we'll look at these questions. Why did that happen? What is happening? Why is it happening? And then what if kind of questions. It's kind of what makes this fun. Okay, so as you're reading the book, there's some boring parts in there. We just got to get a base understanding of how things work. But once you get the basics, there's some really cool parts of economics that will be very useful in the rest of your life. You got to understand, economics is a social studies course. It is not a mathematical course. So don't get worried if you're not a math person. There's zero math in this course. There is some logical thinking. A lot of if this happens, then that happens. If you're punched really hard in the face, you might fall down and knock your head on the ground. So that's the concept. There's a little bit of a cause and effect that you'll have to figure through, but we'll work through all that. Don't get anxious. Okay. All right. So here's an example of this concept of scarcity. You've been saving up some money for some, and the idea is, but there's, maybe you're a runner and you like to run, and you really like glasses, and you want some really nice sunglasses that make you look really good, or maybe just some shoes that make you look really good. And the problem is we don't have enough money for both of those. So what we do is we have to make a choice, and the idea, the scarce resource in this concept is the money, and so we have to decide, all right, well, which am I going to buy? And what makes life difficult is many times it's not just two choices. Those are the things that really stress us out, when there's many, many variables to consider and you don't want to get it wrong. But the idea is we have in this particular example, we have a limited amount of money, and we have two choices, things that we want to spend the money on, and we have to be careful with those choices. Okay. Another way of thinking about resources, could be people also. I mean, if you think of a small town, doesn't have a lot of money, not a lot of taxpayers paying into that, and one little town, we have one sheriff and a deputy, and three things happen all at once, three crimes, and they can all be really serious. And sometimes they will choose which one they can get to, which one they feel they can have a chance of making a difference. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into deciding who goes where, and you need to understand that in any major emergency like an earthquake or a tornado or something like that, you're going to quickly find out that there are very few police out there. Okay, so in this situation, the police are the scarce resource in this scenario, and a decision has to be made. Where are we going to go? And that's now you're going to touch on some really difficult issues of discrimination, or what areas are ignored and all of that, and that is something that all governments deal with in terms of, okay, we have resources, where are we going to put those resources when we use them? Oh, look at that, these pictures actually move. That's so cool. I always forget they do that. Okay, so here we have a concept where we're having to make a choice. Okay, and it's maybe the end of the semester, and we have a big test coming up, and oh man, this is gonna be a really hard test, and so the question is, do we go get that extra help after school, knowing that that may be just what we need to pass that test, or do we go do that sport? Let's you got a sport, and the coach is saying, "Hey, come on, man, you're part of the team, and we need you." And so, in this situation, the scarce resource is time. You cannot be two places, or three places, or 10 places, all at the same time. You have to choose. Someone always once told me that the best way to figure out what's most important to a person is to look at their calendar and their checkbook. Where they spend their time and where they spend their money shows what is important to them. And interesting. What's important to you? All right, so so obviously the decision is which thing to use in this scarce resource in this situation is time. Okay, so now we're moving upwards to something more complicated. So keep in mind that concept of scarcity, that we cannot produce everything and anything, everything that we want, everything. And so, because of that scarcity, there is a process for producing those things. Okay, so for everything that you see people buying or selling, there are factors of production. Now, we don't buy directly things such as police protection. However, we pay taxes, and those taxes go into providing those services that the government offers. So the things we see that are for free, they're not for free. Somebody is paying for them. Okay, and that's a whole nother issue we'll get into later in terms of who pays and how much should each person pay and what is fairness and all that. But let's not go there yet. Okay. The next thing we need to look at is the four factors of production. This idea that for anything to be produced, these four things are there. Okay, these are the common elements that are needed. Okay, so we have land, labor, capital, and then entrepreneurs. So, land's very simple. It's just the space where the resources are extracted from the environment, or the space in which the product is actually produced. So it could be an office building where work is done, or whatever. Okay, could be, if you're doing an in-home business, from could be your laptop. Well, you still paid for the rent or the mortgage for that house, so you're still paying for the land. There's a physical space that is being used, okay, to some extent, and it's always there. Sometimes that's a hard one to kind of nail down when we're looking to start a small business. Okay, labor could be the actual people who do the work, and so when we talk about labor unions, those are workers that have banded together to negotiate for higher wages, better benefits, and so that's a labor union. In one of our chapters, we're going to be looking at labor unions. Okay, we also have capital. Okay, the equipment needed to do the work. And if you think about it, like you're going to have to, buy things to start producing. Later on in the year, we're going to be doing a business plan. You are going to be asked to choose a business or an idea for a business, and we're going to take you through all the steps of creating that business and funding it. And one of the big things, difficult things that we'll have to do is, what kind of equipment is needed to do that business. For some people, their business is their cell phone. They can literally run everything from the cell phone, but that in that case, the cell phone is the capital. Okay. Now the money needed to purchase that cell phone is also part of capital. So sometimes you'll hear the concept of I need capital or a capital fusion. Well, that's a loan. Sometimes we get that money from our own savings, or we run up our credit card. That's essentially a loan. Or we go to a bank and we get actual business loan, or we go to mom or dad. There's a lot of places where we can get that capital or that money. So the money, okay, the money to make it all happen is the capital. The next thing is an entrepreneur. Sometimes the entrepreneur, the person who starts the business. Now, the entrepreneur could be a person with a really good idea. It could be a great leader, but they have no money. And so they'll go to other people to get the money. So that's where, if you're going to start a business, and the traditional way is you would go to a bank and you would have to write out a whole business plan. This exact same business plan I'm going to have you do later in the year. All the steps. We just kind of simplify the steps because we're not going to actually start the business unless you really want to. Okay. But they'll take that idea, they'll pitch that idea, and then an investor will give them the money to start that business. Now, the entrepreneur is on the hook for that business. This is the amazing thing. These people, and I know some of these pictures are outdated. These are all folks that have kind of moved on. Some of them, yeah. There's Steve Jobs there. I need to update these pictures. But if you look at some of these people, you recognize a lot of them. That's Martha Stewart. In between Bill Gates and Vince McMahon. He's the guy who started the World Wrestling Federation, all that. And there's Oprah, Michael Jordan, all those kind of things, and Steve Jobs, and Russell Simmons, and each of these people, they obviously they're very famous, super rich, super large businesses, but even a small business, a person that wants to, buy a truck, sell ice cream out of their truck, and then literally have a little ice cream truck, and that they are taking a tremendous chance with their own money. Even if they're borrowing the money from the bank, they are on the hook to pay that money back. Now think about them versus a worker. The entrepreneur hires a worker. Worker comes in and does work. Now, if the business fails, the worker's frustrated. They don't have a job, but they can walk right across the street and get another job. Now, yes, I know the economy makes it much more difficult sometimes to get a job, but essentially that can happen. And sometimes it actually works out better. You lose your job, you go get another job that you end up making more money. It's, can actually be a liberating thing to lose a job. But with an entrepreneur, it's different. When your business closes and it's a failure, it could mean the loss of all of your personal savings. Just depends on how you've set up that loan. Now, some companies, what they'll do is some people will start a business and it'll grow to a certain amount, and then somebody else will come in and they'll purchase that business for them. So when you see a going out of business sign, it doesn't always represent the fact that that owner lost everything. They might have sold that business to somebody else, or they might have sold all the equipment or the ideas. Not every, but for most times when you see a going out of business sign, that represents a broken dream, and it could be a loss of savings. And so later on, I'll be telling you some stories of some friends that have started some businesses. I also have one failed business under my belt, and so I'll be talking about that and how that works. And it's one of those things where the bigger the amount of money you put into it, it's like any kind of bet or an investment. The larger the amount you put into it, and the more risky it is, the more the payout. the less risky and the lower amount you put in, the less the payout. And so,